Hey man.
Hey guys, hi Abhinav, hi Yugandhar,
Hi,
hi.
hi, Path. This is amazing, man.
Hey guys, what's up?
Going great.
Awesome, awesome. Give me 1
Hey
second.
man, hey
Just
Abhinav.
setting up the stream
What's
as
up?
well.
Who made that 3D render animation?
1 second, bro. I'm
Yep.
just connecting my headphones. Can't hear you guys. Give me 1 second, guys. I haven't connected my headphones, so I am not able to hear you guys.
Yo, बोलो. अबे तू बोल रहा था उधर इक्विपो के मीटिंग में.
Hey guys, what's up? I think we're all set and we are ready to go. Let me just check out how we are on stream. Folks on stream, let me know if you can see this. I think the video is lagging a bit, but we should be good. We should be starting in just a couple of minutes. What we have today. Okay, dude, I think we're all good. Can you guys say something? I just want to make sure I'm able to hear you guys. Folks on Zoom?
Hey man, can you hear?
Yes, bro. Awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you for joining in today. This stream, what I want to do is I really want to talk a little bit about the questions people have. This is not necessarily specific to the masterclass, although we can talk about that as well. But I really want to talk about some of the burning questions today. If you're in design, you're trying to plan your career, I'm sure there's a few questions you have which are way more way above all the other questions, which is these are your burning questions that you're not able to get a satisfying answer for. So in today's stream, we're going to try to cover as many of those as possible. The way it works is we're right now streaming on Zoom as well as YouTube. If you want to ask questions, stay on the Zoom call. We'll get to that. If you want to just watch, you want to just chill out, watch the experience, you can of course join on YouTube as well. I think that would be a better experience. So, okay, let's get started. Does anybody want to go first with their burning questions? What you can do is you can just unmute your mic and you can just ask.
Yeah, hi Abhinav.
Hey man, what's up?
Yeah. So my question is like I'm from a computer science background, like I'm an engineer, and I'm trying to shift into designing field. But I've in past 2 months I've given around 8 to 10 interviews for different startups for product design, and I faced like some written test also, and they were asking questions on basics principles of like visualization, visual design principles, and different grid system and every like how to name the grid and everything. So for cracking the this kind of startups interviews, we have to learn the basic design schools thing, like the theory part, because they expect us to give answers regarding that. But as I told you, like we are shifting from engineering background to this. So how can we
Got it.
tackle that? Yeah.
Got it. And were these interviews with designers or other people in the company?
So, like the initial stage was a written test. So, I will share my recent interview was with a health tech startup. So, it was a written test on HackerRank. So, it was a
Students,
pitch
I
design
have answers
interview.
regarding that. But as I told you, like we are shifting from engineering background to this.
Hello.
Yeah, bro. Continue. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
for it.
there was a repeating of the voice. Yeah. So, the first step was the written test on a HackerRank platform. So, they gave me some theoretical questions, and the last some questions were like sharing some screens of some e-commerce and applying the UX laws. How can I apply the UX laws and tell what are the suggestions I can give? And I qualified for that. And then there was a design interview with the product designer, where we talked about mostly my experience and practical knowledge, not the theoretical knowledge. But I haven't received any like positive response from that. But I faced
Got it.
this like thing like in the initial stage, like they are asking more theoretical questions on the written, as mostly the tech startups.
Got it. I understood what you're saying. I think the way I can tell you this is, in general, you have to think when you're applying to a startup what the interview process is going to be like based on the other kind of applicants who are applying. So normally what I've seen is most startups, the kind of process they have is the first round that you have is usually a filtering round. What they want to do is they want to get rid of the people who have applied by accident. So what happens is, this is something I can tell you from Unacademy as well. Whenever we would post a listing for a UI UX designer, product designer, we would have a lot of people from like mechanical engineering applying who are not actually UI UX designers. They're product designers in the sense of industrial design. Or we would have a lot of people saying, yeah, this sounds interesting, like I can do it. But the point is, we're already looking for experienced people. So keep in mind that initial rounds are filter rounds. What they're trying to do is they're trying to filter out the bad people, in the sense that the people who are not a fit at all. And this is typically done not by designers. This is either done by the HR or it's done by an automated tool. So sometimes you might have something where you have to actually do a test and then it goes into it. However, what I will tell you about knowing these concepts and answering all of this is that most, in fact, I'll open this up to a few people here who have done interviews before. Most interviews, what they are looking for is not necessarily that you have the right answer, but the fact that you're able to come up with it and articulate how you reached it. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say somebody asks you, what kind of process do you follow for getting user insights and incorporating them into the app? Now, of course, your mind might immediately go to, okay, there's that one process I read about, which is the XYZ process, which is used to do this and this. You might be like, A/B testing is another. But the point is, if you start talking about these and you've never done it in your projects before, they're going to be like, okay, why are you telling us that? Tell us about your experience. So more than knowing the thing, people want to know if you've done the thing. So sometimes, this is another related question, which is, do I need to know what the UX laws are, right? Like, for example, do I need to know what Fitts law is? What if they ask me what is Fitts law and I have no clue? What if I blank, right? In engineering, you have this book, which is Cracking the Coding Interview. So like, is there something like that for design where I can get all of these answers? But the point is, even if you don't know the name Fitts law, but you're able to generally, when they ask you, you're able to talk about the concept somehow. Or if you be like, I don't know, I haven't heard of it. Could you tell me what it is? And then they tell you and you're like, okay, this is how I've used it. They would be okay with that. So overall, to wrap it up, what I would say is, the thing with design interviews is, if you don't know the answer, you're supposed to say you don't know the answer, because what they're trying to figure out is not that you know the exact things, but they want to know that when you don't know something, what do you do? Do you freeze up? Do you start making up random shit? Or are you able to actually ask questions, get the answer, think about it, and then give a response? So they're trying to figure out your thinking process. So as much as possible, try to turn questions that you don't know into a conversation, so then you can enter into that process with them. Does that answer your question, Nitin?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot.
Cool, bro. Awesome. Let me just check on our stream. What's up, folks? If anybody on the YouTube stream wants to ask a question, what you can do is just join the Discord. The link will be in the description. There's a Zoom link. Join the Zoom. You can jump on the call and you can ask your questions. I'm not going to be looking at the chat too much because I have too much going on right now. But the best thing to do, join the Zoom call and ask your questions. Okay, anybody else want to go next? Anybody else want to ask a question? Otherwise, I have a few list of prepared questions as well. We can get into those. Some questions that I've collected beforehand. Folks, feel free to just unmute, switch on your camera however you would like it. If you can't unmute your camera, if you don't have bandwidth or whatever, you can just ask on audio as well. That is fine.
Yeah, hi Abhinav. This is Vipin.
Hey man, what's up?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. So I want to ask about the masterclass, like some basic questions, as I'm going to start the course from the next month. But right now, currently, I'm in US. So just want to know about the timings and all. And
Sure,
how the course will be going on, so that I can join according to the time and all that is.
For sure. So the way we do it is, we have some part of the course that is synchronous, which is you need to join at a particular time. The rest of the part is asynchronous, which is you can do it on your own time. The synchronous part, where all our Zoom meetings, we try to do them at 9 p.m. IST. So for me right now, 9 p.m. IST is around 4:30 p.m. So my time zone as well is not exactly that. But 9 p.m. IST is when we do most of our Zoom calls. All our live calls are different days of the week at that time. The main teaching calls happen on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So these are the calls where I personally am teaching the concepts that we have in our modules. And on the rest of the days are optional design office hours calls. They are calls exactly like this one, where me and some of the other mentors. So for example, you see Yugandhar on this call. He was one of the mentors in the previous cohort. So you have calls like that where it's about asking questions just like this, but also getting feedback. So you would screen share, you would walk through, and that gives you some practice on how do you actually present your project as well. So overall, that is how it goes. Does that answer your question? Do you want me to go specific into something as well?
Yeah, about the live sessions, right? Mostly the live sessions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the live sessions, all you need to know is before the course starts, what I'll do is I'll be sending you this calendar. I'll be sending you a course calendar that you can just automatically add to your Google Calendar or your Apple Calendar. And this calendar will have a list of every session with all the Zoom links and everything. So in advance, you'll be able to plan the next 3 months for you very easily.
Okay. And in the course, what are the things going to cover up? Like what about the, like, after the course? What about the assistance of job and all? Is there
Yeah,
anything? Or yeah.
sure. Give me 1 second. Let me just show you this. So what I'll do is let me quickly screen share with you guys a quick one-pager document that I've put together, which had some of the most commonly asked questions with Masterclass. I've just put them together here. In fact, some of you that have applied, I have sent you this link to the document as well. If you don't have that, you can just probably screenshot this or just watch the stream later. But overall, Wednesday, Saturdays are classes. These are our rough 4 modules, each of them for a duration of 3 weeks. We've got assignments. And in general, one of the things that makes this course really different from some of the other courses is that what we're trying to do is create an alumni network, in the sense that every single time, like all the mentors we have, for example, we've got designers from Unacademy, from Hotstar, some of the best people from the industry as mentors, so that the distance between you and the industry is very close. And this alumni network really helps out in the future as well, because anytime one of these mentors, for example, is hiring for their design team, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to reach out to the people they already know, the people they've worked with in the cohort. So to answer your question about how does the job thing work, towards the end of the 3-month program, what we do is we run something called waves. So we run these waves, which is about 6 to 7 companies at a time. A total of about 30 companies is what we had in the previous one. We share these profiles with you. If you're interested, you send an email. I make a referral with the head of design or whoever is hiring, and that goes through the process. So for example, with Sagar, he was in the previous cohort, so he's joining Topper as a product designer. The way it worked was I reached out to the head of design at Topper. I was like, hey, dude, are you hiring? He's like, yes. I said, okay, let me share this with my group, share it in the cohort. A bunch of people said, okay, I want to be connected to Topper. They sent me an email. I connected maybe about 4 or 5 people to Topper. Those people went through the interview round. Eventually, one person got selected. So similarly, there's about 30 companies with all of these referrals happening. And what we do is when we do this for every cohort, the members from previous cohorts can also participate. So to give you an example, let's say cohort 3, which is coming up, it starts sometime in the second half of Feb. Eventually, when we do this jobs thing for cohort 3, cohort 2 will be able to participate, and so will cohort 1. And the interesting thing that happens is between cohorts, people are usually working on their case studies and they're working on freelance projects. So with every cohort that they apply to these companies, your chances of getting in keep increasing. So that is how we've structured the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Does that answer
And
your
one,
question?
yes. And one last question. So,
Sure.
as like right now I'm in US, so how can I apply here? Like right now I'm in a software development one. So, how to change from software development to the designer one in US?
Got it. So one thing I can tell for all software engineers who are on this call, who are watching, is that you definitely do have an advantage, which is you understand how the actual thing gets made. You understand what the entire process is like, from building the whole thing, getting these requirements, to actually releasing, deploying this, and reaching the customers. So that way you do have a bit of an advantage because you understand the entire process. How exactly you should make the transition? I would say the best thing to do is, whether you're a software developer or not, the best way to actually make that transition is to set a time for yourself in which you will work on your portfolio and case studies. Now, of course, this assumes that you've already started learning design using the resources available, or let's say in the masterclass if you're doing it. In the masterclass, for example, these 3 months, every assignment becomes a case study in your portfolio. So by the end of it, you already have, I think we do a total of 5 or 6 assignments. Depending on which ones you think are good case studies, you already have at least about 2-3 assignments, 2-3 case studies in your portfolio. And now then you use this to apply. So another advantage that you will have as a software developer applying to design is a lot of a lot of startups do the same thing which I said earlier. They do place an importance on how much this person understands tech. And you being a software developer, you'll be able to work with the developers much better. So that's an advantage you will have. But the main question that you asked was, how do I transition? It's just like everybody else. What you will have to do is work on projects, make your case studies, compile that into a portfolio, and use that to apply.
No, so my main question is about the US one. So like how to get it into
Okay.
so UX designer in US. Yeah.
Got it. So overall, one advantage of being in this industry is UI UX design roughly works the same all over the world. So even if you look at the hiring processes of companies in India versus the US, they're almost exactly the same. So the first round is a filter round. It's typically a phone call with the HR or it's an online thing. Then you apply for, then you go through rounds where you actually have to present your work to designers, to somebody who's maybe in product management. You might speak to some other people on the team, and then it goes through. So was your question around interview process in the US, or is there something else that I'm missing?
No. So about the market and all, about the US, like how it is differ from the Indian market and all that is, yeah.
Got it. So one thing that is definitely different with the US market is that it's a little bit more mature, in the sense that designing for India versus designing for the US, there's definitely some differences. So when you're designing for the US market, you're designing for a more mature audience. What does mature mean exactly? If you look up the numbers of internet users in India and internet users in the US, internet users in the US have been higher for way longer, like way earlier than India has. Like they've had the internet for a good 10, 20 years now. So the kind of innovation that we're seeing today with companies like Swiggy and all of that, they're all mobile first. Like everybody now has smartphones. That's why India is now a big market. But if you look at the US, it's actually a much older market, which is it started with desktop software, then it got into web, and then it got into mobile. So the kind of maturity there is much different. So in the US, for example, design orgs have much more of a layered structure, which is the kind of levels that you have as a designer are much more nuanced. So for example, a startup in India, your entry level might be product designer, then you might get into lead product designer, and then you might get into one or two more things, and eventually there's head of design. So there's only about 2-3 levels there. In the US, when you look at companies that have been doing this for a while already, there's a lot more levels. So you have things like associate, you've got, and there's actually a ton of them. So you've got VP, you've got director, you've got head of design, you've got chief design officer sometimes. So overall, I would say it's way more mature. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. Yeah. I got some.
For sure, man.
Hi, Abhinav.
Hey, man, what's up?
Hi, Ronak is this side. Sorry,
Hey, Ronak.
lighting.
Tell me, bro. Yes.
So I'm a beginner in UI UX. So what happened was in my earlier days, I was like reading a lot of podcasts and a lot of newsletters about the UX. So now when I watched a lot of your videos and then I try to recreate many of the UIs. So what problem I faced was that since I have quite a bit of like knowledge about UX too, I tried to get into the UX part of it whenever I try to design the UI. And what happened was like for every decision there are many business goals and they have like many things to consider. So
True.
how should I like as a beginner improve my UI as well as like keeping in mind like UX? Because if I'm just doing UI, I get bored.
True. Great question, by the way, bro. So let me just okay. So the way I would approach this is copying screens, which is, the strategy that I've recommended on YouTube. By the way, Ronak, I've just muted you for now. You can unmute yourself if you want to talk in between. The strategy that I would recommend of copying apps is a great strategy for getting used to Figma, right? And that is the number one thing you need to do. Main reason being that Figma is your first blocker in converting your ideas into real screens. So Figma is the number one thing. But then once you understand Figma, you get stuck because at this point, you've been copying screens. You understand how to make anything. But now you're like, how do I actually practice some of my UX stuff as well? And the thing I typically recommend for this is you have to stop thinking at the level of screens and you have to start thinking at the level of flows. So let me give you an example of that. If you're doing something like daily UI, or if you're copying screens, let's say, typically you will, let's say you make a calendar screen. It'll be a calendar, it shows you your events, and that's about it. But there's no UX in this because how did the user come to the screen? Where does the user go next? All of these questions are not answered at all. So a better approach to practice UX would be to think of a flow. Now, let me actually give you guys a good example of this. I want to give you a real assignment that anybody on this call can pick up and actually try it out. What I do is on my phone, I maintain a huge list of design assignments. And whenever I have ideas, I keep adding to it. And these are the assignments that make it to the masterclass. So let me give you one of these examples. Assignment ideas. Okay, so one example would be you have to design an app for food delivery where the pickup has to be done by you. So it's not delivery, it's food ordering, but you have to go do the pickup. So you have to design the flow for that. Right? So now what you're doing is instead of starting with screens saying this is a checkout screen or this is a purchase screen, you're starting with the problem. You're saying, what am I trying to make? I'm trying to make a food ordering app. So that way it'll be very similar to Swiggy. I have to place an order, all of this. But in the end, it's not delivery. It won't show me a map. I have to actually go to the restaurant and pick it up. Once I reach the restaurant, what happens? Do I have to show them something? What are they going to do? How do they verify that you are the real person? Now, when you start thinking from this approach, all these questions start coming up in your mind. And this is now when you have the chance to think about the user experience. So now from the beginning to the end, you have to sort of zoom in with your mind and be like, okay, what would happen if this did this? And sometimes you can do this as a lot of research activities are designed to help you with this process. So for example, if you would do a survey saying, actually not a survey, but let's say you make your first version. You play all of this out in your head. And now you make a prototype where it shows a code. You have to show the code to the restaurant. They scan the QR and then it says your order is done and then you can collect it. A good way to test this out would be actually to make a very simple prototype in Figma, but now give it to a friend and try to create a mock situation. This is almost like you're manufacturing this simulation of how it actually would be. And now you're saying, okay, try this out. What happens? What questions came into your mind? When you saw this, what did you feel? At any point, did you feel confused? Did you feel stuck in what the next step was? When you do this, now doing all of this, you've now tackled a real UX problem where there's a real scenario, a user has a goal. There is a defined success endpoint, right? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out how do I get them from this state to this state. Does that answer your question? You want to go deeper into that?
Yeah, answers my question. So if I have to like find more assignments like this or more activities, where could I like get something like this?
So there are a few websites that give assignment briefs, but personally, I haven't found them to be really good.
Yeah, they are very generic and like attention to.
Yeah, it's a good question, dude. I think there definitely needs to be a place for these assignments. In fact, what we were considering for the 10K designers thing is to actually make a book of assignments, a book of 50 assignments. But then we realized that 50 is too much. And so we were like, okay, so what we do is every cohort, we have 6 assignments. And out of this, I think 2 of them stay the same and the rest keep changing every single time. So the people in the previous cohorts, if they want, they can use the new assignment briefs to participate as well. But I would say there isn't a place you can find it. But the best way to actually do this is when you're out about in your real life, in your normal life. Like, for example, let's say you're doing your commute, which might not be happening right now with COVID. But let's say you're going out to get a chai or something, or you're going out to, pick up some groceries or something. Look around you and look at areas where a human is doing something that could be done by tech. So the groceries example, let's say you go into your normal grocery store. Let's say you go to a slightly big grocery store and you say, what if, give me 1 second. You go into a grocery store, you're buying your, milk, eggs, bread, and you're like, I have 3 items, but why should I stand in the line? What if there was a self-checkout where I could just scan these things and do it? Once you ask yourself this question, 10 other questions pop up. You're like, okay, but what if people try to steal the bread? What if they try to steal the eggs? Right? How would you do that? So you're like, okay, maybe I'll have like 5 checkout machines, but I'll have just one person standing to monitor that. You're like, okay, but then what does this machine do? How exactly do you enter the details into this? So now this becomes a possible brief for you to start exploring. And it's usually briefs like this that make great case studies as well. Because nobody wants to say, I recreated YouTube. Because people will be like, of course, YouTube, there's a lot of business constraints. You might not understand the full context. But you saying, hey, one day I was at a supermarket, I saw this, and then I did this. That is a way more interesting problem, because then the person on the other side is like, hey, this person is thinking like a designer, right? Yeah. So I would say, don't look online for these assignment briefs. Look in your real world, look in your everyday life, and try to find these smaller opportunities. Awesome, bro. Thanks for asking that, Ronak, by the way. It was a great question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Anybody else want to jump in? Please feel free. Let me just check on our YouTube. Folks on YouTube, if you want to ask a question, I'm not looking at the chat right now, but what you can do is you can join our Discord and you can actually join the Zoom call and you can ask your questions there. I've just posted a link. You can check that out.
There is a question in Zoom chat.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's a question in Zoom chat that I'll quickly answer. This one is about Adobe After Effects versus Principal versus Prototype. What do you prefer for UI animation and micro interactions? So what I'll do is let me quickly show you something that I've put together regarding these tools. 1 second. I'll have to screen share. It's a great question because it's not just these 3 tools, in fact, Adobe After Effects, Principal, and Prototype. There's probably 10 different tools, or I don't want to say 100 because it's probably 100, but there's a lot of tools out there for prototyping. And it's very confusing to figure out what prototyping tool should I use. So let me just quickly show you the story I've written. I think it was about what tools do I need? What tools do I need for motion design? So if you guys want to check this out, the answer is here, but let me quickly explain to you what the difference is between these. The outcome with After Effects, actually stop sharing. The final outcome that you get with After Effects is a video, right? You get a video where some stuff is happening on the screen. Now, the problem with this is that you can't actually play with the video. You can't say what happens if I click this button versus the next button. That'll have to be a separate video which shows that. After Effects is great for making these concepts, but it's not technically for making prototypes. It can make videos, and these videos can still communicate the same concept, but it's not actually clickable. So that's one of the problems with After Effects. So technically, if you're looking for a prototyping tool, After Effects is not the best place to start at all. After Effects is a good place if you want to do micro animations, not micro interactions, micro animations, things that will need lottie animation. I'm not going to get too much into this. I don't want to get too technical. After Effects is great for that. But for prototyping, what I would suggest is pick a tool. So to start with, pick something that's screen level prototyping, right? So for example, if you are using Figma, Figma lets you connect screens, and that's screen level prototyping. Figma also lets you do, for example, smart animate, which is you can on a screen make things go, around. You can create transitions from one screen to another. That then gets into element level prototyping, which is you are trying out more deeper interactions. So in general, what you need to know for prototyping is you need to know one screen level prototyping tool and one element level prototyping tool. Forget everything else, right? Everything else you can try out when you need to, if there's something missing in your tool, but you just need two tools. For screen level prototyping, personally, there's a bunch of these: Marvel, InVision, UX, and Flinto. What I would just suggest is to use Figma. Use Figma and use the normal prototyping. For element level prototyping, personally, my favorite is Principle. I've tried a lot of tools, almost every tool. My favorite is Principle because it's the easiest, it's the fastest, lets you do most things. However, Principle is only available for Mac. So the next best alternative you have, which is actually more powerful than Principle, is Protopie. So Protopie is what I would suggest. Coincidentally, Protopie is still paid, by the way. So Protopie costs, I think, somewhere around $100 a year. But I mean, the Masterclass students get it for free. You get a free license because I've got an educational licenses. But you can definitely use the trial to make that decision, and eventually, maybe you should ask your company to pay for the tool. Yeah. Folks who've just joined the Zoom call, welcome. The way it works is you can just unmute yourself. You can ask your question. And yeah, that's how we do it. Anybody want to go next? By the way, let me just say this. We have a bunch of people from 10K designers on the call as well. We've got one of our industry mentors, Yugandhar. We've also got some alumni on the call. So if there's any questions that you want to ask about the program, what you can do is I can actually, on this call, connect you to some of these mentors and you can ask them that. So if you want to do that, please feel free. Yug, I have a question for you since nobody's asking right now.
Yeah, man.
So Yug, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah, someone was actually going to ask, I guess.
Okay, let me just quickly do this with Yug and then we'll get to you, whoever that was. So you've been an industry mentor for the previous cohort. You've done a ton of Zoom calls with a lot of students giving them feedback. The question I have for you is, how important is getting feedback from someone? Can't you do this yourself if you're a learner?
It's definitely very important because see, when you are actually designing, when you take references from internet, you watch videos, but you don't have a feedback loop. You probably are in that particular bubble, which says that okay, this particular design is actually the great design that I have done, and you get satisfied with that unless someone is actually critiquing on it or giving feedback, which is also like feedback can be of two ways, like someone who actually did that work really good and there is some kind of problem with the design and that needs attention. So if you did a really good job and you need to validate that, okay, whether this is something that really works or not is really important. Unless you don't know that, you won't be possibly implementing the same thing later on in the next project. And secondly, the mistakes that you have done, they need to be addressed. Probably you will also carry those traits in the other projects as well. So this loop is really important, and we in the cohort really focus on this particular aspect of giving feedbacks or timely feedbacks rather. Like we also have DOH sessions. So yeah, that's really good aspect of cohort 10K designs. Yeah.
Would you say this is one way I've been thinking as well, is that it's very difficult for you to find your own blind spots.
Yeah.
And a mentor can help you do that. Would you agree with that?
Obviously, totally. Rather, it also happens with the mentors. Like mentors do need feedbacks as well. So it's not, and these are newbies, so they would definitely need someone who's actually entering into UI UX. Definitely needs some kind of feedback loop to validate their designs and to know what's the right direction and know their blind spots. So yes, of course, I do agree with you.
For sure, man. In fact, I can share this one thing from myself as well. So currently I'm working with somebody I'm working with a business coach. Okay, there's one guy from the US. He helps a lot of online creators with their stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the things I've understood is that you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right?
There are things you
Like
know, there are things you don't know, and there are things that you don't know that you don't know.
exactly. So a lot of times it's like there are some things which I'm like, yeah, okay, you're teaching me this. I know, I've heard about this concept, and finally somebody's helping me with this. But sometimes it's like, fuck, I didn't know that existed. Like
Yeah.
now that you've told me this, everything changes, and those I think are blind spots, very hard to find by yourself.
True, true,
Yeah.
really true. Yeah, someone was
Okay.
actually asking question.
Yeah. Somebody had a question. You can just unmute yourself. You can talk. Mute yourself again. Let's try to keep this audio. I think that's the fastest way. Audio and video, whatever works for you.
Hey, I'm Nitin again.
Hey, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask that we have two classes, right, on Wednesday and Saturday. So will the mentor session will be in this itself, or it will be a different mentor session feedback?
Yeah. So the short answer is that it's separate. But let me actually show you to give you a little bit more of an idea how exactly this looks. It'll help you visualize a bit. Um, 1 second. I am going to screen share a calendar with you guys to show you how exactly this worked for the previous cohort. And this is how we're going to structure things for this cohort as well. So this was our rough calendar for design office hours. These are the mentor sessions that they're called DOH design office hours. So on Wednesday, you see there's no design office hours. This is because that's the session with me. That's my live session that happens here. On Saturdays as well, my live session happens at 9 p.m. But on the rest of the days, what we did was we had the design office hours. So these are definitely optional, but you can sort of choose which mentors you want to ask, which ones you want to join. So what we typically say is on Monday, decide how many you want to attend, which ones you want to do, and add them to your calendar. And we normally suggest a typical minimum number that you should attend to get the most out of it. But yeah, this is how the design office hours session works. These are optional to attend. It's sort of a choose your own path, which is everybody attends different sessions. They get different insights. But the main sessions happen here, which is on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. Questions from the Zoom.
Hey Abhinav, Trisha
Hey,
here.
Trisha. Yes, tell
Hi.
me.
So I wanted to ask you, when an intern is moving from I'm interning for past few months, and next I wanted to of course look for full-time job. So what do you see in an intern? So when after the internship is over, how much they should have grown, or what qualities they need to have to move to a full-time job, or what can go wrong that could reject them from the full-time job opportunity? That's what I want to know.
Great question. Great question. So one thing I can tell you is that from my experience, now don't quote me on this. This is just my general experience. I'm saying most of the times internships get converted into jobs when it comes to designers. So you know how in college there's this whole idea of PPO. Will I get placement after my internship? For design roles, typically I've seen if you intern at a place and the company is growing, they will offer you a full-time job. But then let me talk about some of the things you can do to actually improve your chances, improve your shot. Think about it this way. So a company that has hired you for an internship, let's say it's for a 3-month internship, it could be 6 months internship. They've invested time and effort, firstly into getting you on board, then giving you this entire context, helping you understand how things work, then helping you understand how the design team works, how handoff works, how communication with engineers and product managers works. So at the end of 3 months, they have a choice. They have to think about all this time that we've spent training this person. We don't obviously want it to go to waste. we don't want to start this whole process again with another designer. So companies in general want to retain you after the internship. However, the things that they look out for are, in that duration, the kind of project that you worked on, what was the outcome of that project, which is typically internship projects for design. From what I've seen, this could vary, are a project that you're given, which is roughly you have some responsibility over. They give you some responsibility as an intern, even if it's a, even if, so I'll give you an example. So somebody I know, their internship project was to make, this is not an academy, this is somewhere else, was to make the careers page or something. And this was, I think, a 3 week project. And then there was a different project they did. So designing something like a careers page, definitely it's not the main product of the company. However, it's still very important because this determines what quality of applications they're going to get. So let's say this was your project. And at the end of 3 months, what they're going to see is, when Trisha worked on this project, what was the outcome? Was this person able to take responsibility even when they weren't told what to do, right? Which is, this person, the fact that they've been given responsibility, do they need a lot of hand holding saying that, do this, why haven't you done this? Or are they someone who takes that responsibility and actually delivers something? So this is technically not a part of design. This is more about your work ethic. But what they look for is somebody who they really want to keep. Think about it this way. They've trained you for 3 to 6 months. They've trained you. They've spent so much time, not just the money that they're giving you. They've spent so much time helping you understand things. So at this point, they really don't want to let you go. So what you need to do is you need to really focus on your project that you have. Can you really give an outcome, and can you take responsibility even when somebody doesn't tell you to do something? That's something that I've seen that really helps interns stand out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question, by the way. Folks in the chat, what's up? Beginners. I have a few beginners in the chat asking, how do you get started? You're already in the right place. If you're watching this on YouTube, click my channel name there. You'll see a playlist called Design Crash Course. That is enough for you to get an overall top level understanding of things. Questions from Zoom. Let's do this.
Hey, I have a small doubt.
Yeah, man, for sure.
How does a beginner get started on freelancing front, like freelancer or this? Like a person who just finished the course and he tries to do freelancing.
Could you start over? I couldn't hear the initial part.
How does a beginner get started on freelancing sites? Like nowadays, it's become a little more strict, right? Reviewing applications. So when you complete your designing course and you want to get into freelancing, like how do you start? Because starting is the hardest part, right?
For sure. I would say what you can do. Let me quickly give you the short version and then the long version of this answer. Give me 1 second. The long version of this answer, if you want to understand how exactly to get freelance work, join the Discord. The link is bit.ly. I mean, if you're watching the Zoom, you're already on the Discord. But I made this one video called How Do You Get Freelance Clients? So you can check that out, but I'll give you an answer here as well. Where is the video? This is one useful thing, which is full-time and versus freelance. And I think, yeah, this is the video. Here it is. How do you find freelance clients? People on YouTube, if you're seeing this, the link is in the Discord if you want to check that out. But the simple answer is you have to not just go for platforms. That's number one. So instead of saying, I'm going to go just on Upwork, you also have to try what else can I do? Because at this point, when you start off, you're not sure where your clients are going to come from or what's going to work for you. So for example, a lot of people, when they start, don't actually join platforms at all. They go directly to Twitter. They start talking to founders, they start helping people out with design related stuff, and they start forming connections with people who will probably need freelance soon. And you might be surprised, you might think this is a long term game, which it definitely is. But I've seen a lot of people within a week of doing this on Twitter, they started getting DMs from people saying, hey, you're a designer, by the way. I noticed that in your bio. Would you be interested in this? So, in general, whether you're going for platforms or you're going for this other kind of approach, you're going, networking with people, whether that's Instagram or Twitter, the thing you need to be mindful of is people need to see some proof that you're good at what you do, right? So, for example, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter who do this, but they don't mention in their bio that they're designers. That's a missed opportunity. Why? Because when somebody sees this, they have no clue why they should DM you. Versus if you say in your bio that you're a designer, you're saying effectively, DM me if you want to know anything about design, right? So you want to say that. Besides that, you want to demonstrate your skill in design through different ways. One way, of course, is case studies and portfolio. That's the most important way, because you have your link in your bio. When you're applying for the jobs on Upwork, you want to share examples with them. You can share case studies. You can just share Medium links. This is going to be your main proof of work. Besides that, you're going to have other types of proof of work, which is going to be, let's say if you're doing Upwork, you're replying to, you're reaching out to a different projects and you're bidding for them. On Upwork, the way you can stand out is by writing a good cover letter. A good cover letter means you have understanding of what the client wants and you're saying, I am a good fit over there. That's one way to stand out. So what you really want to think about is to summarize this whole thing, and we can go deeper if there's something else you meant to ask. But the way is you need to build your proof of work and don't just stick to one platform. Try everything out there to see what works for you, because what worked for somebody, back in 2015 on Upwork might not work today, but today maybe the best opportunity for you will be Instagram. Maybe there's something you can do there. So try out a lot of different things.
Okay,
Does that answer your question? Yeah. I would definitely suggest you check out the video. I think that will give you a little bit more context on what we're talking about. We talk a bunch about, actually I can quickly show you guys a small preview here. We talk about a bunch of stuff in this. I see a lot of reactions here. Let me jump to this part. We talk about what do you need to be a successful freelancer. We talk about inbound versus outbound. What exactly is the difference? The main difference between a successful freelancer and not successful one is leads. We talk about the types of leads. We talk about where you can do this. We talk about referrals. So check this out. I think this will be a useful video for you. Okay, folks, we have about 10 more minutes to go. 10, 15 minutes. Questions from Zoom?
Hi, Abhinav. I have a question.
Yeah.
This is kind of like kind of a follow-up to the feedback question that you had asked earlier. So if I'm working on a concept project, like at what point is it like a good time to ask for feedback? Like from coming up with the concept to like finishing up your case study, at what point do I ask for feedback?
Got it. So let me give you a short answer, and maybe somebody else can also, maybe one of the students can jump in as well. The short answer is that as early as possible, because what typically happens is, let's say you've gotten on a call with this client and you've exchanged a few words. They're like, this is what I want. This is roughly what I'm looking at. These are my references. Now you can take a week to actually design a perfect thing, which is the perfect solution according to you. But then a week later, they might be like, oh, you didn't understand that one part, or this is not what I meant. And now you've lost a week of work, right? So I think I'm lagging. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So at this point, you've lost a week of work. Why? Because by the time they saw it, you had already done most of this. So the approach to actually avoid this from happening is to ask for feedback as early as possible. And sometimes it doesn't need to be, can you give me feedback? It can be in the form of a status update. So let me give you an example. You just wrapped up a call with a Zoom client right now, and with a client over Zoom, and you ask them a bunch of questions. They said, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a new website. This is what we want. Um, and now you say, okay, I think roughly this will take about a week or 2 weeks to do. I'll get back to you with an update in 2 days. In 2 days, of course, you don't have the full site ready at this point, but it would be good to give a status update, which is, let's say you're just your wireframe saying, this is what I'm thinking about, or one Notion document that puts together all your ideas and says, hey, are we on the same page? Are we still aligned that this is what we're doing? So what you're doing here is you're not saying, give me feedback. You're giving a status update and you're giving them an opportunity to give you feedback if necessary. So even for internships, actually, let me connect this to Trisha's question. One of the biggest mistakes interns do is that they're scared to ask questions. So they get a project, they get stuck, they don't ask a question. And then 1 week later, when the mentor asks them, hey, what have you done? They're like, oh, I didn't do it. Why? Because they were too scared to ask questions. The other way to do it would be to do a small part of it, send a status update, and then now you're giving them the chance to jump in if needed. If not, you continue doing it. So overall, the answer is, instead of having a big piece that you deliver all at once, try to break it up into smaller chunks. Some of these they will give you feedback on, some of them they won't. When you explicitly need feedback on something, you can ask for that as well. But in general, as often as possible. Does that help answer your question?
It does. But what if it's a concept project, as in there's no client or anything? I just found a problem that I would like to solve. And I have, somebody that I can ask to ask advice or feedback. When do I do that? Is it the same as what you said, or does that change if when it's a concept project and there's no client?
Got it. So when it's a concept project, either you're doing this by yourself or there's somebody you can ask for feedback. Let's assume let's assume both, actually. In either case, the best way to go about it is, before you start, make a plan for yourself, which includes the timeline. Pretend like there's a client, right? So for example, let's say you're doing a concept project, which is an app design, some app design. Instead of saying, now I'm going to start exploring, and then, that's typically where procrastination comes in and then delays happen. Say, I'm going to make a plan where within the first 3 days, I want to finish this. Within a week, I want to do this. And then by a week and a half, I'm about 80% done. Make a plan. If you have a mentor, share that plan with them as well. If you don't have a mentor, keep this plan to yourself. Once you've done this, try to stick to this plan no matter what, right? You have to now pretend like this is an actual client who's given you this constraint. So that's the way I would suggest you go about it. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Folks, few more questions. I'm quickly checking the chats in YouTube. Folks, I see a lot of stuff here. Unfortunately, I cannot answer on YouTube chat. If you want to ask a question, you will have to join the Zoom call. Yeah, anyone want to go next on Zoom?
Yeah, hi Abhinav. I had a question about portfolios.
Yeah.
So I have looked at a couple of like UX portfolios online from different people, different YouTubers. Some of them seem to include just screens. Some of them have a detailed report of the whole design process from beginning to end. And I feel like it's different every time. So what would you say is essential in a portfolio, and what is it recruiters most look forward to in the portfolio?
Got it. Thanks for asking this, Annabelle. I think that's a great question. In fact, just before this, I was looking at the comments of my most recent video, and this is exactly what people were talking about. I would say the simple answer to this, the very first thing that you need to know about this is that there is no standard portfolio template. you might already know this. I'm just saying this for everybody's benefit, which is when you see a lot of these portfolio examples on Medium and on the internet, your brain is trying to figure out what exactly is the template they're following. But keep in mind that there is no standard template. The way I explain this to my students when we do the case study workshop is your portfolio is a reflection of your design process. And design process is different for everyone. So portfolio typically will have differences as well. Your design process, the one that you followed, is a reflection of your ability to solve problems. Right? So that's the way it goes. A design process, the only reason it exists is because it's a structured way to solve problems. And with the case study, what you're doing is you're giving the reader an opportunity to understand what your design process was. So that way, don't worry about format. You don't have to try to fit an existing industry standard. There is no format. Your case study is a story. What you're doing is you're walking them through what the process was. Keep in mind that the reader of your case study might not be a designer. They might be an engineer. They might be a product manager. They might be the founder of the company, or they might even be HR. What you're trying to do is you are trying to show what your process is like to help them imagine what it's like to work with a designer. A lot of early stage startups might not have worked with designers yet. You might be the first hire. Or a lot of startups that already have a design team might be looking to see if you have a process at all. Because what they don't want to see is that you're just randomly putting stuff together in Figma and hoping for the best. So what I would say is, as much as possible, try to talk about your process. If you think you don't have a process, think deeper. You do have a process. It's just that you might not have put concrete terms on it. Think back. What did I start this project? What did I do then? What changed the direction of this project? Try to tell a story, because in the end, keep in mind, it's not a designer who's reading this. So if your case study is just saying, using technical terms that only designers would understand, people are going to drop off. So to wrap this up, what employers are looking for is your proof of work. They want to see that you've done work before and you can repeatedly do the same thing if you're hired. Does that answer your question, Annabelle?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I want to add into this, if we are applying for an intern, not for a full-time employee, just like I'm right now in the final year. So will be the things which you told will be the same, or we can add something less or some kind of basic study for applying for an internship?
It'll be the same. So the hiring process, as well as this whole case study portfolio thing, remains the same whether you're applying for an internship or a full-time role. Yeah. Amog had his hand raised. What's up, Amog?
Hi.
Hey,
so
man.
my question was basically on lack of motivation. So there are some projects in mind. I have ideas that I want to, turn them into prototypes, UI designs, but I'm lacking motivation and I always get distracted by something else. How do I stay focused? How do I find that motivation to finish it and that focus?
Great question, bro. Very good question. So let me tell you a little bit of my own personal how I do it. I have too many things I want to do at this point. Let me just be very honest. I have too many ideas and not enough time. So anytime I'm excited about an idea, I know I want to do this. But then if you do something, there's something else that you don't do. So there's something called an opportunity cost that exists. For every project that you do, there's 3 other projects that you're actually saying no to. So let's say, as an example, today I was like, hey, shit, I want to do something new. And I just jump into it and I start working. What happens is the other things that I was supposed to work on don't get done. So overall, think about your projects in terms of opportunity cost first, which is The reason you can't do them all is because you have limited time. And this opportunity cost then comes down to prioritization. You have to think about which one is more important to me. But besides that, let's say you have picked a particular project that you want to work on. I would say this might sound too simple. Okay, let me know if it does. When I first heard this, I'm not sure who told me this. I think it was one of my mentors, but I don't know. The simple rule to productivity, which is make a plan and stick to it. Right? The simplest way to hack your own motivation is to make a plan and stick to it. Seems too easy, right? Let's dive in one level deeper. Most of the times when we're starting out with the project, we don't have a plan. We have some idea of how it might go down, but we don't typically sit down to plan it. We jump into the first thing that needs to get done, and then we hope that it'll reveal the second thing that needs to get done, third thing, and finally we reach the end. However, you do need a plan, right? So a very simple way to do this would be, let's say you are working on a project. Try to figure out when do you want to do it by. So time is then a factor. So for example, let's say you have a project and you're like, I want to finish this week. So then you're like, okay, that's my plan. Now that I have a plan, I'm going to do everything possible to actually execute it. That is too simple, but I want to ask you, does that help, or do you think there's something missing there?
As simple as it is, I think it is true that you must stick to something like a plan. A plan always works out, and
yeah,
that's true. I never sort of decide, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then next day I'm like, okay, let's do something else, let's do something new, and then I move to that. So the previous projects don't and they just stack up.
Yeah,
so you're right. Yeah, that does answer my
question. And I think it's a very common question with designers. So I would say, if you find yourself in this position, any one of you, don't be disheartened, this is a very common thing with designers, which is we have something called the shiny object syndrome, which is we are automatically attracted to the shiniest object that there is. A lot of times this looks like new side projects. It might look like a new idea that you need to do, but keep in mind that it's actually a bad thing, and it can actually affect your progress, because just going after the shiniest thing means that you don't get to put focused time into one particular thing and seeing it grow.
Yeah.
So you miss out on that part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for asking this as well. Waris, you want to go next?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I am a beginner and I have my portfolio resume already. And I'm actually self-taught and I don't have anyone asked to. So I myself thought that it would be nice if I intern at a web design or UX design studio. So, I mean, I eventually want to get into freelance, but I was thinking it would be better if I work with a design team at first and get to know in detail the design process and all. So what do you think? Where should I find actually web design studios to intern to, and what should be my approach to what should be my pitch there to have me as an intern?
Awesome. So let's do this. Have you interviewed at any yet?
Yes, I have. I had an interview, but I was rejected at that. And yeah, so they actually gave feedback, and I don't really know if that is a good feedback. They said that I didn't have my wireframes up to mark. I'm not sure what do we have my wireframes there. Yeah.
Got it. So let's do this. Yugandhar, you want to jump in here?
Yeah.
How about, so Yug, for example, let me give you some background. Yug works at Procedure, which is a design agency. They do a lot of projects. Yug is the head of design there. I want both of you guys to have a conversation right now.
Okay.
Right? Yug, let's say you are hiring for a designer. You're hiring for the designer role. What if you're applying for a designer role? How would it go? Yug, you want to start it off?
Yeah. So, Waris, can you just tell me more about I do have your portfolio link. Can you just send me that first? And secondly, I just want you to walk through the whole portfolio that you did, and point out one good project that you have in the portfolio, and just deep dive into it. I just want to you to dip there? Like explain what was your whole process about it. How did you land on this particular solution?
Okay.
And yeah.
So I have actually my portfolio linked right in the chat, or do you want me to share my screen?
It would be great if you can share the screen.
Yeah.
Like Abhinav can allow him to do that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Is my screen visible to you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, wait a minute, please. So I'm a UX designer and I'm self-taught. I started a year and a half ago. And this right here is my portfolio with my mission statement to make people's lives simpler using the skills that I have in product design.
Okay.
I have actually, and I am more interested in user experience rather than user interface. So I'm not just some designer who makes screens. I'm also the one who goes through the process of research, user testing, and all the whole design process. With an enthusiasm for designing with strategies. And talking about projects, I have actually this project that I recently did. It is a design of a fitness app that is just a concept project. And please wait till it loads. Here. So as you can see, I'm not sure if you have, as you can see this, I have written here's its whole case study that you can actually read. And here I defined my entire design process that first started with defining the challenge and setting a goal, like what the user wanted to achieve. And then I talk about my process of my design process of how I did research, how I did how might be questions and all, and how I did prototyping with a link to an InVision prototype, and how I did user testing. And here's the final product, as you can see here. My design is just, as I've already told you, to make people's lives simpler. And with that keeping in mind, I always design things that are simple. As you can see, this interface is clearly simple.
Okay. So do you think that how much would you rate this particular app out of 10? And what are the scope of improvements in this particular app as what it looks like as of now? So where can you improve?
This, as I already said, this is a fitness app. And here you can see these are like activity monitors, agenda. This is a goal tracking app. Right now there are goal tracking stuff. So an improvement would be made if I had an addition like right here, this doesn't have any feature of like telling exactly what kind of exercise that people can do. If someone wants to have a 10-minute home cardio session or something like that, this doesn't have anything like that. So I can have a feature of like having exercise routines and all in this app, integrated in this app.
Okay, and why do you think that like visually does it look sound to you? Like, are there anything that you think that can be really made better and visually that would really help? So user experience, of course, has a visual like the interface as one part. So if your flow is good and if your screens are something which are really difficult to read or understand or they're not legible, so do you think that the user would drop off from that particular screen and they won't continue to the entire flow? So do you think that this visual design is to the app, and why do you think that it's not, if it's not, and if it is yes, can you just tell me why it is so?
Okay, so this design is certainly not perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. But I think first I'll tell you what just is there. There is a brand color, like there is some consistency of blue color. There is not just like 1,000 colors in there. And there is also hierarchy there, like hierarchy, like some are having low opacity, some are having high opacity. So I think this visually it is not that bad. And in order to rate that, I would rate it like 10 or 8 out of 10. And what better can be done, like settings page and this page right now, this battery page, I am not fan of that because like as you can see, the settings page right here, it will show in a minute. Wait a minute, please. Yes, this one. Settings page, as you can see, it's just some settings and not in detail, not like what do friends and devices mean here? So I think heading with a subheading in settings can be implemented right here.
What made you hold back
Let's
this
do
particular
this.
stuff? Yeah, yeah.
Let's do this, guys. Let's do a timeout now, and let's quickly talk about how that went. Right. By the way, this is very similar to what we do in some of our sessions in 10K designers as well. This kind of mock thing. But let me give you some of my thoughts, and then you can jump in. Now, I think base your progress as a self-taught designer, amazing, right? I like compared to my own when had started designing, I look at this and I'm like, I know that you know what you're doing, right? So what you've done is great in that way.
Thank you.
This thing that we just did, this kind of presentation walkthrough is something that will happen in every single interview that you do. And it'll happen multiple times in the same interview. So for example, you might do it with one person. The next round, you might do it with a different person, different project. It goes like that. So this one thing, if you can nail, will help you in interviews a lot. But let me talk about how that went, right? I'll talk about one particular thing that stood out to me, and then you can talk about it. Now, when you asked what do you think can be improved about here, you talked about that thing, this feature can be added. And then you notice what Yug said next. He said, what do you think about the visuals? Because the answer Yug was expecting is the visuals can be better. Right? You can see that. You can make that inference. And Yug will tell me if I'm right or wrong right after this. But when a question like that is asked, right, what can you improve? Ideally, you want to think about it in this way. There's tons of things to improve. Nothing is perfect. You're absolutely right about that. But you want to try to tell them what's the thing you'll improve that makes the most impact. So let's say you can improve this one particular screen. Will that particular screen improve the rest of the app? Probably not, but it'll improve that one screen. However, let's say you improve something which is a big main thing, which is something like visuals. It'll affect all the screens. So ideally, you want to think about that. But other than that, Yug, what do you think was your main takeaway from this short kind of interview experience with Varis?
I think absolutely. As a self-taught designer, that's a thumbs up for what he has been doing so far. It's really nice. Obviously, the visual part is what I expected, where I could find a lot of things which are failing in contrast, not really like failing in accessibility, where user can't really read the text in yellow or white, and things like that. These kind of things can really improve the visual parts, the typography as well, the line heights, even in the website as well. If you see your logo is not aligned properly with the text, that can be improved. So these are the small things which you can say that okay, I'm in the process of developing this, like improving this particular app. This is a portfolio which was updated a while ago, and I'm still working on it, still improving, pushing pixels every single fortnight or something like that, which gives a feeling that okay, you're still working on that, and you're still improving. You're still aiming for. See, anyone who is uploading a case study, once he's uploaded, okay, that's done. That project is done. It's not like that. Every time a designer would be still not satisfied with one or certain thing in the project. That okay, this can be a little better. This transition from one screen to this other screen can be a little better, and I can still do that. So you can also show the proof of work in that way that okay, the portfolio shows this, whereas my Figma file has some more iterations on that, and I'm still working on that. So that can be a better way to show. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I got my answer. Thank you so much for that, for the interview. Yep. That was quite unexpected, but that was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, man, for sure. Folks, we're in the last 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly take any questions related to the masterclass. If you've already enrolled, that's great. You can DM me your questions, right? We're already connected now. But anybody who's considering applying for it, who has any questions about it, feel free to ask me that. What I'll quickly do in the meanwhile is let me look at some of the chats as well. If there's something here that we can talk about in 5 minutes, which is a bit of a time constraint. Um, so folks who are interested in signing up, you can definitely always DM me your questions. I just want to wrap up with something related to not the masterclass, but I want to just quickly talk about something that I think is kind of important. Give me one sec. Let me share my screen here. So folks, I want to quickly see in the chat, Zoom chat or YouTube chat, whichever, how many of you have seen the latest video on my YouTube channel, the one on number 1 misconceptions? You can just drop a hand emoji or anything. So what I want to quickly talk about, this, I think, this particular thing that you're looking at, if you want to get a copy of this, you'll find it on the video. But I really want to talk about these 5 things before we wrap up. I think what I'm trying to figure out is I'm trying to figure out what's the, like this is, I'll tell you why I'm doing this as well. I'm trying to figure out what are the top questions, whether top 5 questions or whatever, that I can answer that will help the most number of people, right? And so far, this is my list. So let me know if there's anything else. But overall, I want to talk about these 5 things, which is number 1, that you need a degree to be successful in UI UX design. Absolutely not true. We have a lot of videos coming up on this where we talk to some people who actually hired designers without degree. We speak to a bunch of heads of design as well. Number 2, you need to code to be able to get a job as UI UX designer. While a lot of designers do code, it's not a part of the job description. However, there are some roles like UI developer that require coding. So whenever you're applying for a role, read the fine print, read the job description to see what exactly they're looking for. If you go for UI UX designer or product designer roles, they don't require you to code. The third is that you need to be a creative person, good at drawing or sketching. Absolutely false. You need to be able to communicate your ideas, and doing it visually through drawing, that's all you need to know. It doesn't matter whether you can shade and create the perfect shadow, but it does matter if I ask you, for example, can you draw, let's say, I'll give you a very simple example. Can you draw and show me how do you cook Maggie? I don't care how good the Maggie looks, but I want you to show me a visual example of how do you cook Maggie. If you're able to do that, you're good, right? You don't need to be creative. You need to be able to show your problems, show your process. Number 4 is that creative jobs will make money. Absolutely false. Art is not equal to design. That's where this misconception typically comes from. And the final one, of course, is that there's too many designers. The industry is getting saturated. And the good news that I have for all of you is that we're just getting started. Look at the number of internet users India has had. We also call it the geo effect. We haven't even gotten started. We're just in that first stage. If you look at YouTube, for example, we're going to reach a point where the majority population of YouTube, assume YouTube was a country, the majority population of YouTube is going to be Indians because we have so many people coming online. And when that happens, when we have that kind of Indian internet where you have so many users who are coming online for the first time, we're going to need UI UX designers who can bridge that gap, who can create products that anybody can use, whether it's your parents, whether it's your peers, your classmates, or whether it's, you go to the chai wala shop and you use Paytm to pay, right? That's only happened recently. There's going to be a ton more of that. So as a field, this is a super exciting place to be. I want to thank you all for joining this stream. I love having these conversations. What we'll try to do is we'll try to do this every week at the same time. So Thursday, 9 p.m. Folks on YouTube that couldn't join us on Discord, please do join next time. Open invitation to all. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to DM me. I'll try my best to get back as early as possible. So see you all, and good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.